Okay, so the NFL playoff postseason is set for this weekend, the first weekend of 2020. Now, a lot of people, hardcore, enthusiastic fans, are looking forward to this, and these hardcore, enthusiastic fans know of all the scenarios that could play out. Now, however, there are those that are fans but don't kind of understand the concept, and the hardcore fans need to help them out. Well, I may not. Well, I'm a fan, and probably a hardcore fan in some sense, semi-hardcore kind of fan. But I do know enough about sports to kind of look at the scenario of the situation. So, the NFL postseason is a tournament, just like the NBA postseason is a tournament, and the NCAA basketball postseason is a tournament. Now, basically what that means is you have a selected number of teams playing. In this case, you have 12 teams. Now, right now, the number one overall seeded teams on both conference sides have home field advantage. Thus, why a lot of commentators you hear are saying that the road to the Super Bowl runs through that team in their town, in the home field. In this case, on the AFC side of things, you have Baltimore, the number one overall, so the road, as of right now, runs through Baltimore, Maryland. On the NFC side of things, you have, of course, the San Francisco 49ers, who earned that opportunity just last night. So the road so the road on the NFC side of things runs through them, as of right now. Now the two teams that are below them at the number two seeded teams, on the AFC side is the Kansas City Chiefs, and on the NFC side of things is the Green Bay Packers. The other teams are the ones that are playing this weekend for a chance to advance into that divisional round, or that second round, or that quarterfinals. Now, the way they're seeded is how things could really play out and shake things up. The only legit thing about this, the only legit thing we have to look at, the only real thing we know about, is the number six seeded team, the number six seeded team in the conference has to play all road games unless something comes up, weather-wise or whatever. Unless, like I said, weather plays a factor or something, has to play all road games to try to get to the Super Bowl. The number six seeded teams in both conferences are, for the AFC, the Tennessee Titans, who earned it yesterday. And on the NFC side of things is the Minnesota Vikings. Now, with that said, and that being the only logical, if not true, thing about the uncomplicated or unshaken up portion of the playoffs that's going to pretty much stay unaffected, the number six seeding that is, how could things play out? Well, like I said, and a lot of people have been saying this, the road to the Super Bowl on both sides runs through Baltimore and San Francisco, who ironically not that long ago were against each other in the Super Bowl as well. Now, with this overall said, what scenarios could play out? Well, it's like this. The lowest seeded team has to play the number one team. So that could be either 6-4 on both sides. So in other words, either Minnesota, Philadelphia, or like I said, Minnesota, Philadelphia, or Seattle would be the ones to play San Francisco, depending on the outcome of their games. New Orleans, being number 3 on the NFC side of things, would, if they beat Minnesota, would go to Green Bay. So that's how that would play out. The number 6 to 4 seeded teams would be the ones going to San Francisco, while New Orleans, if they win, would go to Green Bay. The same on the AFC side of things. the number 6 seeded team, Tennessee, the number 5 seeded team, hold on. So yeah, the number 6 seeded team, Tennessee, number 5, Buffalo, and number 4, Houston, depending on the outcome of their games there, would end up going to Baltimore. Well, New England, if they would have beat Tennessee, would go to Kansas City. Now, with that said, you're probably wondering, okay, that sounds all logical and that makes sense, but what happens if something occurs that could change things, that could shake things up? Well, that's where, again, the unpredictability, with the exception of the number 6 seeds being the untouched ones, being the only saving grace, well, you know nothing's going to really happen with them because they got to play all road games. The other scenarios could play a factor. So, long story short, if Tennessee finds a way to upend New England, then Tennessee would go to Baltimore. Well, either Buffalo or Houston, in this case, let's say Buffalo beats Houston, goes to Kansas City. Now, with that said, the same scenario plays on the NFC side of things. If Minnesota, the number 6 team, beats New Orleans, they go to San Francisco. Well, the Seattle Seahawks and Philadelphia Eagles would play to see if they go to Green Bay. In this case, if Seattle goes to Philly and beats them, then Seattle goes to Green Bay. Now, makes sense, right? Basically, it's a domino effect. If one top team falls to a lower seed, then, that's the team that moves forward. So if Minnesota wins the number 6 and Seattle wins the number 5, they're the ones that go forward. And that plays into Seattle's favor if another scenario plays out. And the same could be said on the AFC side of things, where if Buffalo moves forward and Tennessee moves forward, that plays in Buffalo's favor. And here's why. Let's say Buffalo goes to Kansas City and beats the Chiefs. And then let's say Tennessee goes to Baltimore and by some crazy reason or legit reason beats the Ravens. Then guess what? And I know Patrick Butler, if you're watching, you love this scenario. Basically, that means Tennessee would have to go to Buffalo to try to get to the Super Bowl. That's right. You see, if Kansas City, the number 2 team falls, and the number 1 team falls, then the next highest seeded team is the one where the road or remaining road to the Super Bowl would go through. In this case, number 3 is New England. But let's say they get upset or they get beat, then Houston would be de factoed as that team where the remaining road goes to host would be that team to host the conference championship and the remaining road to the Super Bowl. But if Houston goes down, then Buffalo is de facto to that. Basically, it's like if one high seed goes down, then basically the conference hosting a conference championship falls into the arms of the next highest seed. And if that team goes down, or that next highest seed goes down, then the next one. And then if that happens, you get it's a domino effect, if you will. It's basically a domino effect. And the same goes on the NFC side of things. If the Niners and the Packers are knocked out, then New Orleans, being the 3rd highest ranked team or seeded team, would be the ones to host the conference championship. But if they get knocked out, basically, then Philadelphia is the ones that will host the conference championship. But if they get knocked out, then Seattle is the one that would host the conference championship if Minnesota does their job. So basically, the 2 lowest seeded teams in both conferences, as far as the road to the Super Bowl goes, are the ones that basically you would want to see probably win, because right now the road on both sides goes to San Francisco and Baltimore. But by de facto, if those teams fall, goes through Green Bay and Kansas City. But if those teams fall, it goes through New Orleans and New England. But if those fall, then it goes through Philadelphia and Houston. And if those teams fall, then it goes through, believe it or not, Seattle and Buffalo. And I know, like I said, my friend online in Facebook and YouTube and all that, Patrick Butler, would love to see that scenario play out, where Buffalo gets to host a conference championship, the first one in almost like 25 years, 30 years. So that would be something for Buffalo in the long run. Like I said, the only thing we know of that we're sure of is that the number 6 seeded teams would have to play all road games just to get to the Super Bowl. That's Minnesota and that's Tennessee. So basically Minnesota would have to go to, so basically the thing is, to get to the Super Bowl, Minnesota has to win their game against New Orleans, possibly beat San Francisco, and then beat Green Bay or Philly or Seattle to get there. And that's on the road. The same with the Tennessee Titans. They would have to beat Tennessee Titans, they'd have to beat New England, they'd have to beat Baltimore, if you will, and then they'd either have to beat Kansas City or Houston or Buffalo, and again, that's all on the road. So basically, the teams that have a chance to host the conference championships that are right now looking at an all-road schedule are your number 3 to 5 seeded teams. That being New England, Houston, and Buffalo on the AFC side. And on the NFC side, of things, it's New Orleans, Philadelphia, and Seattle. So basically, that's how it works. That's how things could change. That's how the tournament by seedings could go. Basically, if the highest ranked teams fall, then by default, everything that they had falls into the arms of the next highest seed. And if that team falls, the next one. It's like I say, it's a domino effect. It is basically a domino effect that a lot of high-ranking seeded teams and their fans would like to see be avoided, if you will, if you know what I mean. They would love to see that kind of scenario, those kind of scenarios be unavoided. But that's how basically the NFL playoff and tournament works, or any kind of tournament works in sports. So, especially if it's home field. Home field's on the line when it comes to mainly hosting the conference championship for a chance at the big game, or in this case, the Super Bowl. So, that's pretty much about it. That's pretty much about it on the whole Super Bowl kind of thing. So I thought I'd just come out here, let you guys know about it. Do my best to kind of uncomplicate it, make it sound a little easier. But as of right now, the number 1 seeds on the AFC side, Baltimore, and on the NFC side, San Francisco, the road goes through the home turfs unless something happens during the playoffs. So that's about all I'm going to say, guys. Let me know what you all think down below. Hopefully this helped out. And I've got a feeling what we're going to get in the end is probably one of the better postseasons in the NFL that we've seen in a long time, which means when you think about it, it's quite the way to cap off the 100th season of the NFL and the start of a new decade. So let me know what you guys think all down below, and I'll talk to y'all later.